In a part of the country where small towns are mostly shrinking, this small city is not only holding its own, it's actually growing. Find out why it's growing, who's moving here, and stick around to see what there is to actually do here. It might surprise you. Welcome to Storm Lake, Iowa. Once home to Native American tribes, this area has had its fair share of turmoil as natives were forced out of their homelands, with white settlers seeking after the rich farmlands available in this area, arriving here by the 1850s. Originally known as Boyer Lake, that name was revoked following the discovery that the lake was not actually the source of the Boyer River. Storm Lake got its name, at least so the story goes, from an old trapper who was asked by surveyors to name the lake. Following a strong storm that blew down his tent the night before, the trapper named it Storm Lake. A small town began to grow on the north shore of the lake. By 1870, Storm Lake had its own railroad station. In fact, 1870 was a big year for the town, with the first church being built, the post office being established, and the first baby to be born here. The city was incorporated in 1873. In its early years, Storm Lake was known for providing ice for local ice houses, but of course, with the advent of refrigeration, the lake ice industry was no longer viable. The city has redefined itself a few times over the years, but in 1935, it found an industrial niche that has continued here to this day, the meatpacking industry. With so much agriculture in the region, hogs, cattle, and even sheep were processed through the original meatpacking plants here. During these early years of meatpacking in Storm Lake, the workers were mostly local and made decent wages. However, in 1982, Iowa Beef Processors, better known as IBP, took over the management of the plant here following a closure under the previous management, making drastic changes including lower wages, fewer union protections, and higher processing volumes. The focus of the plant also shifted primarily to pork. Under IBP, the workforce changed. With less pay being offered, many of the new employees were coming from Asian and Latin American countries. This has resulted in one of the most diverse towns to be found anywhere in this part of Iowa, or even the Midwest. In 2001, Tyson took over after IBP, and they continue to run the meat operations here still today. Storm Lake seems to celebrate the diversity of the people that now call this home, with community events such as a Parade of Nations and multicultural shops and stores throughout town to serve people from different places. Storm Lake is also home to Buena Vista University, one of the largest private universities in the area, which has been here since 1891. Supposedly, being a Presbyterian-affiliated school, Storm Lake was chosen for the location of the university because of its lack of bars or saloons at the time when the school was built. Today, it has an enrollment of nearly 2,000 students. While Storm Lake may not be at the top of everyone's tourist destination list, it is a very scenic spot with a beautiful-looking lake. There are lots of walking paths, parks, and scenic neighborhoods, especially down by the lake. With tree-lined streets and plenty of old architecture, the area has a warmth to it that I don't really know how to even put into words. There is a small water park here, complete with one of the multiple lighthouses that can be seen in and around Storm Lake. In fact, lighthouses have interestingly become one of the symbols of the town. Around town, there are multiple 7-foot-tall lighthouse sculptures that are a public art installation. The city has even earned the nickname of being called the Lighthouse City. However, one of the most unique museums I have ever seen is here in Storm Lake. It's not in a building. In fact, there's no artifacts or displays at all because the museum is literally a collection of living trees. In Sunset Park, right beside the lake, is the Living Heritage Tree Museum. Along the multiple walkways of the park are over 50 trees of all kinds. Each one is a relative of famous trees, connected to historical figures, or has some sort of significance beyond just being a tree. For instance, there is an apple tree that is a descendant of the actual trees that Johnny Appleseed planted. There is a sycamore tree that has ties to George Washington, an oak tree from Bunker Hill, and a chestnut from Versailles, where the Versailles Treaty was signed to end World War I. I never thought looking at trees could be this interesting, but each tree has a plaque with information on where, who, or what the tree is a descendant from. It actually was a neat place to look around. There is also a historical museum in town, the Buena Vista County Historical Society Museum, but I was filming this early on a Sunday morning, so it was not open while I was filming here. Another place to check out, of historical significance, is the Harker House, a preserved example of Second Empire architecture, which is available for tours during the summer months. As I mentioned before, Storm Lake is not a touristy place. In fact, there are many parts of town that look like they've seen better days. But there are other parts where the natural beauty will leave you in awe. It's a pretty quiet little town, and if you're looking for a waterfront community in the American Midwest that isn't terribly overpriced, adequately supplied with stores, restaurants, and just enough entertainment options to keep you occupied, this could be it. I don't say this about everywhere I go, but I honestly could see myself returning here for a longer stay, sometime down by the lake. We'll see you next time, somewhere else down the road.